I'm a liberal and a proud socialist, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, he's also a big spender, delusional, and once again, talking out of both sides of his mouth. That's Steven Guilbeault, our beloved environment and climate change minister. He's at it again. We'll be back in a minute, and I'll tell you what he's up to now.
So we are in a very precarious position in this country. We need political change, but we also need to resolve to resist.
Yes, thanks for watching today. As Sasha, my dear cat, used to always say, please like the station. Like it now so we can beat the YouTube censorship. You've been helping us do that all week. Thank you for subscribing or resubscribing and not unsubscribing. We've had a bumpy ride during the last week, but it's been fun. Fun talking about issues and truth. And I want to read a comment before I go any further. But once again, share this broadcast with your friends and family. And I will be showing our video a little later about the marketing, the merchandise. And I'm wearing it today. Have a look at our store. Please. This is one of our best sellers. And this, of course, this is the hoodie in its relaxed dress here on Saturday at the Krayden household. Those of you who are in the military know what that means. I mean, yeah, basically you're in your casual wear. And I'm wearing this today to not only because I love it, but because it advertises, well, I think, one of our best things. This is the Canadian Bill of Rights. It's a T-shirt. I love the gray. It's a hoodie, sweatshirt, and this is about being a free Canadian, free to speak. It was in the Canadian Bill of Rights, 1962, passed by the Parliament under John Diefenbaker. And it was really a popular piece of Canadiana during the Freedom Convoy. Not my sweatshirt, but the Bill of Rights was a popular Canadiana piece of memorabilia because people said, hey, didn't we used to talk about free speech instead of just saying it was a nice idea? Didn't we actually put that into action and into a program, into a document? Yeah, it's in the Charter of Rights, but I think it was enunciated, articulated better in the Bill of Rights. Anyway, that's beside the point. I want to read a comment we got before we get into Randy Boissonnault's latest, and of course Steven Guilbeault, who I mentioned yesterday, he's been accused of siphoning hundred millions of dollars into a private business. Why would a socialist have a private business? We started at the top here with Guilbeault in the House of Commons announcing he's a proud socialist. So what's he doing in the Liberal Party? Well, maybe the Liberal Party is socialist now. Nobody seemed to disagree with that, except the donors, of course, who said maybe not. But I want to read this comment. I got to put my glasses on for it, and I do have it here. Oh, where are we? Yeah, I know it's too small to read. I saw this yesterday, and to be quite honest, and by the way, we do have these great mugs as well. These stand on resolve to resist. That's what I need to do every day in my personal life as well as politics. I have the utmost respect for our duly elected Prime Minister. He has been constantly maligned by the people that he serves with admirable effort, but still criticized incessantly. Now, I got that far and I thought, okay, it's a liberal bot. This is somebody just trying to harass me. And of course, aspersion, I think it means aspersions are cast regarding his sexual orientations and the identity of his father. This should not happen to our country's political figurehead. Now, I saw that, I got suspicious because, of course, Justin Trudeau might essentially, and in fact, be a figurehead because he's a lame duck prime minister. It's the Queen and / Governor General who technically are the figureheads of Canada in terms of government. A few scandals that have been attributed to him have been entirely baseless and merely exaggerated by the mainstream media that continuously attack him. His revered status through the world is sadly lacking within his own country. Isn't it about time that his devotion to the people of Canada be recognized? If you agree with these claims, then you must be a liberal. If you disagree, then you see things the way most of us do. Hopefully you made it through without gagging too much. Yeah, thank you. And who sent that? This is John Shields. Thank you, John Shields, for that little tidbit. That was much appreciated. So before we get to the Randy video or the and what's been happening, I want to talk about Guilbeault here because it's absolutely incredible. So here's a guy in complete denial about what's happening in the world today. Trump re-election won't affect Liberal government's climate change strategy. Nope, still oil and gas caps. Carbon tax going up, even though there's no carbon tax in the U.S., even under Joe Biden. There won't be under Donald Trump. And Donald Trump's going to laugh at us. Okay, you guys don't want to produce oil and gas that we can buy? Fine. Well, I guess we'll buy it from Saudi Arabia. Of course, Donald Trump would rather buy it from Canada. And most Americans would rather fuel up with Canadian oil and gas than they would with Saudi oil and gas. Because Canadian gas is a lot more ethical. This is a democracy here, sort of. Even under Trudeau, it's sort of a democracy, and it will be again with a new government. But Guilbeault is living in a different world. Two different worlds. We live in two different worlds. That's what he's living in here. And he is completely at odds with reality. Now, Donald Trump is not going to be signing, he's going to be taking the US out of the World Health Organization. He'll take the US out of these Paris Accords again. They're doing what they need to do, to reduce their emissions. They don't need a carbon tax. It's completely ineffective. It's Guilbeault's idiocy. It's Justin Trudeau's idiocy. But for these people to say they're not going to change, they're going to continue to strangle our oil and gas sector. This is insane. So what's he up to here? And I got to show you this. Trudeau government backs talks for a levy on shipping to help developing nations fight climate change. Now, this is Guilbeault's latest piece of idiocy. Obviously, Trudeau's behind it. When I read this the other day and I thought, what in the hell is this? I mean, what is he trying to do here? And I'm not entirely sure what this thing is about, but it's very bad news. It is extremely bad news, and there's more of it here. Guilbeault proposes new global carbon tax on maritime shipping. So what this amounts to is money laundering. Doesn't take much to look at this. It's called Gaia. According to Guilbeault, the new fund will include direct grants as well as long-term loans with the goal of getting $2 billion from private sources as well as the government. And where's the money going? Somewhere in the third world. Does that sound to you like something like money laundering? It's going to go into a bank account someplace in the third world so they can have easier access to shipping? What is this? Is insane. US $1.48 billion blended finance platform for climate projects. This is exactly what they are up to here. I have another slide I wanted to show you. Here. And this one's not loading. Sorry about that. But this is absolutely insane. And if we have a look at this is a recipe for government overreach. Not to mention another tax. Guilbeault is the tax master in terms of you giving him his money. And I can't believe he would even introduce this after the story broke in the Western Standard last week about him being accused of siphoning. And we'll have that slide I could probably get. I want to show you this again. And I'm a little short-handed here today. Sorry about that. There we go. This one. By the way, I hope you all had a chance to watch me on Viva Fry yesterday. That was a tremendous experience. Yeah. Guilbeault accused of siphoning $254 million to his own company. So when he comes up with this scheme of taxing shipping to give it to third world countries, gives it an acronym that nobody even knows what it stands for, and yet he's just been accused of siphoning $254 million to his own company, and yet he's proposing now that we raise $2 billion and give it to the third world someplace, to a bank account in the third world. This guy is completely out of his element. And it just amazes me the Canadians are putting up with him as they do. Now, what's the latest on Randy Boissonnault? I know you all love to follow Randy. The employment minister, the Liberal member of parliament from Edmonton Centre. He's the guy who stays up all night talking to trans kids when they're concerned about something, largely anything that the Alberta Premier introduces. That Danielle Smith, when she talked about, I don't think it's a good idea for 12-year-olds to be having sex change operations, something they might regret down the road, maybe even 3 months later. Maybe they don't want to be on medication for their entire life to keep the sex change operation going in place. Maybe they don't want to have puberty blockers. Maybe they decide at 17 it wasn't a good idea. Randy thinks that's a bad idea. He thinks 12-year-olds should be having sex change operations because that's just like joining the chess club at school. Yes, this imbecile actually said that. Just like he said he stays up all night talking to trans kids who are so worried about Danielle Smith's legislation. But this is classic. He also claimed, this is how low this guy gets. He also claimed he was Indigenous. And this is how his company, which of course is also the source of a major scandal. What was Randy doing still owning a lobbying firm while he was a cabinet minister? But it seems he was trying to get favoritism, special favors from the government by pretending to be Indigenous or First Nations, or whatever you want to say, however you want to describe it. And it was a bald-faced lie. Here he is. This is the Indigenous Liberal Caucus. Yeah. But so Randy had to come clean about this. It's hard to come clean about these things, isn't it? It's hard to admit you're a liar. And Randy, of course, did his best to pretend he's not lying. Just like you recall the Senator Warren, Elizabeth Warren in the United States, the Massachusetts Democratic senator. She claimed, of course, to be Indigenous. They don't reuse that word in the States as much as we do. They say Native, or sometimes they even use the old phrase Indian. But of course, Trump dubbed her Pocahontas for that because it was a bald-faced lie. She's not in any way Indigenous any more than I am.
Randy Boissonnault is apologizing after shifting statements about his family's Indigenous heritage.
I want to say unequivocally that I apologize for not being as clear about my family history as I could have been with everything that I know now.
CTV's chief political correspondent Vashi Kapellos has a reaction tonight. Vashi.
Heather, the minister.
Now, did you get this? It's not that he lied. This is so typical of liberals and Democrats. I didn't lie. I wasn't clear. I just didn't make it clear that I'm really not. Because what I meant to say was, I am Indigenous, but I'm really not. Is that clear, Randy? Is that how clear you wanted to be? Because actually, that's not clear at all. That's completely ambiguous. And for you to make an apology and pretend you didn't lie is no good.
Minister is facing headwinds from multiple places over claims he's made about his heritage, now going back almost a decade. The National Post was first to report on those shifting claims. Boissonnault first identified as a non-status adopted Cree, then last week amended that to say his adoptive mother and brother were Métis citizens. The minister insists he was not trying to pretend to be Indigenous, but that his claims are reflective of confusion over his adoptive family's history. The issue, though, is really how all of this came to light. A medical supply company Boissonnault once co-owned bid for a federal contract, and here's the key, identified itself as Indigenous-owned. Boissonnault's involvement with that company was already being probed by a parliamentary ethics committee. The committee is probing whether Boissonnault's involvement in the business activities of the company after joining cabinet amount to a breach of conflict of interest rules. And the Conservatives, Heather, they're calling on Randy Boissonnault now to resign.
All right, Vashi, thanks.
All right, are we digging this? Are we getting this? This is phenomenal. So he not only claimed in his personal life to be Indigenous, he used it as a bargaining chip in his company to get government contracts. So he lied about it so he could get government contract. This man is just corrupt through and through. And once again, nobody's defending him in the Liberal caucus or the cabinet. It's just, that's Randy. Yeah, that's Randy over there. Yeah, we know how bad it is. We're not going to defend him. But the committee's dealing with that. Maybe the police will deal with it someday. Maybe the courts will deal with it someday. But we're not even going to talk about it. And of course, Randy will not stand up in the House of Commons and address these things. He gets the House Leader, another non-entity, to stand up and say, "Well, these matters are being settled right now." And this is another example of the Liberal government being completely out of the water. And as we said earlier, Steven Guilbeault is completely detached from reality, talking about keeping gas and oil caps in place, keeping the carbon tax in place, even increasing it. Doesn't matter if Donald Trump was elected president. Yeah, I'm sorry, it does. It does matter. It's a different world right now. It's a completely different world now that Donald Trump will be president in about 2 months minus 4 days, plus 4 days. 2 months plus 4 days, Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States, barring something horrible happening in the interim. And the world has already changed. Donald Trump is nominating people who are going to take the Liberal government by storm. By the actions in the United States, they're going to completely affect what Justin Trudeau's government can do in Canada. So we've got Guilbeault acting like a complete ignoramus. We've got Randy Boissonnault again. This is what, the third or fourth strike against this horrible cabinet minister who is an excuse. He shouldn't even be sitting in the House of Commons. He's a DEI hire. That's all he is, and we all know why I'm saying that. He's a DEI hire. He should not be in the House of Commons. He should not be sitting there. And why the people of Edmonton elected this idiot, I have no idea. But for God's sake, I hope they don't reelect him the next time, because this really is an embarrassment. Which brings us to the segue, because this is almost part 2 of yesterday's broadcast. You recall what we talked about yesterday was, how can the Trudeau government survive a Trump administration with the idiots they've got in cabinet? They've got it's a pack of scoundrels like Guilbeault and Boissonnault, or incompetence like Chrystia Freeland and Melanie Joly. And I've got another clip of Joly to show you shortly to illustrate how this woman is completely out of her depth. And I loved discussing that with on Viva Fry's show yesterday, because he was completely on the same page as me. How does this woman, who would make perhaps an adequate travel agent, if such a thing even exists anymore in the age of everybody doing their own travel plans, but she would have made a great travel agent at one time. How does she imagine she can be a foreign affairs minister? And they keep talking about these choices Donald Trump is making, saying, "Oh, I don't think he or she has the expertise or the experience." What the kind of expertise or experience did this woman ever have to be foreign affairs minister or the head of global affairs? And why they call the department different than the office, I have no idea. But that's Trudeau. And that is mind-boggling to me. So, but here is the kicker. Snap election before Trump sworn in would be best for Canada. Yeah, you bet. You bet that would be best for Canada. And this is John Manley. He was the first public safety minister when that department was created under Jean Chrétien immediately following 9/11. And I think that was a horrible office to create. In retrospect, I supported it 100% at the time. I thought this is what we need to fight terrorism. I didn't think that department would be used against law-abiding Canadians, just like the Department of Homeland Security has morphed from a terrorist-seeking organization into an American citizen-seeking organization that goes after pro-life activists and concerned parents at school boards. But that's beside the point. John Manley was what we call a blue liberal. He would have been equally at home in the Stephen Harper government. He's a common sense guy. I met him on a number of occasions when he was still serving as minister and I was working at the House. Always found him affable, serious, above severe partisanship. He could deal with opposition MPs, opposition critics fairly and responsibly. So I think John Manley always was doing a good job. So he's saying, have that snap election that I was talking about, if you recall, for late November, early December. Have that snap election before Trump is sworn in on January 20th, because you need a credible government to deal with the new president. Justin Trudeau is a lame duck prime minister. Justin Trudeau is a lame duck prime minister who is completely detached from reality right now. He's flying around the world, not even talking about the election. He said, congrats to Donald Trump. I'm moving on. Thank you very much. And that's Justin Trudeau's reality. And John Manley's cutting through that and saying, hey, you can't represent Canada with Donald Trump. You have no credibility anymore. You need to resign as leader of the Liberal Party and resign as Prime Minister of Canada, or have your election and let Canadians decide. And that's all he's saying here. He's saying, let Canadians decide. If you think you can lead Canada into the next year, into the new Trump administration, have an election and prove it. Otherwise, you have no credibility. You have no validity as prime minister. Here's a treat for you. Now, don't go away here, because this is a real treat. And I just want to show, I want to show this because I think this is just wonderful.
When I did Rocky, if you remember, the first image was a picture of Jesus, and it says Resurrection AC Club. I found a church that had been converted to a boxing ring. So the image pans down from Jesus onto Rocky being hit. And at that moment, he was a chosen person, and that's how I began the journey. Something was going to happen. This man was going to go through a metamorphosis and change lives, just like President Trump. We are in the presence of a really mythical character. I love mythology. And this individual does not exist on this planet. Nobody in the world could.
Oh, all right. I want to get back to that. Just hold on.
So I'm in awe. And I'll just say this, and I mean it. When George Washington defended his country, he had no idea that he was going to change the world. Because without him, you can imagine what the world would look like. Guess what? We got the second George Washington. Congratulations! But
Okay, we don't want to hear the music. That's we're in the presence of a really mythical character. I love mythology. Nobody in the world could have pulled off what he pulled off. So I'm in awe. You have to remember, Donald Trump was considered failed after he lost in 2020. You can debate whether he really lost or not, but he was out and people said, it's over. He fought back over 4 years, all through the judicial persecution, all through the lawfare. He kept fighting back and he won. And he won again. And he is, as I said in my column in Human Events this week, the first week after the post-election first week has been monumental. The people he has nominated for cabinet, for positions in his government, is shocking the world and shaking the world. Now, I want to show a clip here to show you. People are saying some of the picks, as I said earlier, are questionable, that they don't have the expertise and the knowledge or the experience to do a cabinet job. Well, here's somebody in Canada who should not be in cabinet because she's completely unqualified. And as I've said so many times, travel agent, yeah, but listen to her try to explain how she thinks Canada is going to tell Donald Trump how to run his office.
If there's a country in the world that understands the US, it's Canada. And so that's why there's so many delegations, so many countries that are coming to see us, to ask us about the new administration, to ask us about how we and they can adapt. And so I think that Canada's influence is actually increasing because of the impacts that the world is now facing with the new administration. So we will continue to engage, and we will continue, of course, to engage with the US, but we will increase also our engagements across the world based on that. And last point also is, let's all remember, Canada will be hosting the G7 next year. And so we also have an important role to play as the new administration is coming, but also the world is adapting to its presence.
What was your reaction?
So because Canada is hosting the G7, that means Canada is going to tell Donald Trump what to do. This is another one of Melanie's famous word salads that compete with Kamala Harris in terms of being imbecilic and incomprehensible. But there she is.
So, of course, we will work on the G7 preparation. We have a G7 Sherpa. She's been in contact with all the other G7 Sherpas.
The G7 Sherpa. Where did this tagline come from? This is usually attached to a guide in the Himalayas. I'm wondering, where is this woman's mind at? So we've got a Sherpa that's in contact with the other G7 Sherpas. This is something Donald Trump is probably going to fall over laughing at and when he hears, but this is incredible.
Yes, indeed. In 2025, Canada will be hosting the G7, and indeed, President-elect Trump will be coming to Canada like he did last time. And so that's normal course of business.
When other countries ask you about the United States, about the Trump administration, and Canada being a bit of an expert on that, what do you tell them when they ask you what's going to be the difference between the second Trump administration and the first one?
I think that, of course, the existing Trump administration has a lot of experience, but which is different when they were first elected in 2016, because, of course, President Trump won and at the time had to adapt to being now a politician.
What in the hell is she talking about?
And president. I think that a lot of things have changed since 2016 and their 2016 to 2020. First, it was before the pandemic. Second, it was before the Ukraine war. Third, it was before the Middle East war.
It was before the pandemic. Well, the pandemic's over. So what does that have to do with 2025? Unless you want to start another one. Trump wants to end the war in Ukraine. That's the difference you don't understand and the Trudeau government doesn't get. Trump wants to end the war in the Mideast. That's something you don't get either as a foreign affairs minister. You have an incredible lack of perception, lack of discernment.
And fourth, China has taken clear geopolitical stance that are very different where we were. And so I think people have a tendency to think that the world was pretty much similar, which is not the case. And so based on that, I think people are able to see the trends of the future administration.
You know, she can wave her arms and her hands around indefinitely, and it's not going to make sense of what she's saying, because what she's saying makes no sense. And to suggest that it's a different world today than it was in 2016, China is really bad now. And this is after the COVID, and we have a war in Ukraine, and this is just a complete mishmash of liberal talking points that add up to absolutely nothing. And what she should be saying is actually we have no influence with incoming Trump administration, and we probably won't have much unless we start changing our government. We're not going to change Donald Trump. We're not going to change America. America will change Canada now that Joe Biden is history, and now Kamala Harris is history. With the incoming Trump administration, Canada must adapt here. And we cannot expect the United States to adapt because Justin Trudeau has a different set of priorities, and Melanie Joly says it's a different world today. Now, that is an example of the kind of people running this country right now. As I said, the Trudeau government is run by scoundrels and incompetence. That's what defines the Liberal government in November 2024. And it's not going to get any better. And I agree with John Manley. We need a snap election. We need it now. And we all know who's going to win that. Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives are 20 points ahead. He's going to get the biggest majority in the history of Canada. Yes. And that's good news. And I'll keep pressing that government, just like I keep pressing his official opposition, to do the right thing on principled conservative issues. Because that's what we need to do. But we do need a change in government. You bet. That's obvious. Anyway, thanks for watching today. Gone a little over time. We love you. God bless you. And we'll be back and visit the store. Get yourself one of these hoodies. These are fantastic. Christmas coming up. Grab some stuff from the store. It is really a way to say, not just you support the station, but you support the conservative principles. And you're going to continue to resolve to resist. And I need to do that in so many ways. And we all need to do that in so many ways. Thanks for watching today, folks. I'll be back again tomorrow with all the news you need to know and more.